Good evening, everyone. And I would like to thank Dr. Gaurang and Dr. Pratik from the Homeopathic Hub for inviting me over today to let me share my experiences with treating hormonal disorders with homeopathy. Now, why did I choose this topic? So, the main reason is that I'm doing my MBA right now, and my thesis topic is hormonal disorders and treating them with homeopathy. So, I thought, why not share my experiences with you through this? So, as this is Materia Medica series, right? So there are many different ways that we can learn Materia Medica, right? But one of the most important way is the applied method of learning Materia Medica. One method is from where we learn from the books. We read from the books. We commemorate the symptoms that we see in the patients with the books, and then we give. But one way is to have the live walking, talking patient in front of you and treat him as the remedy and understand him. So what do we do when we take a case? Basically, when we take a case, we differentiate the common and the characteristic symptoms. Then we hold the characteristic symptoms and then check it in the Materia Medica and then see which remedy fits it the best. So, let's make the Materia Medica come alive today with the help of few cases. So, the first case. I would like to tell you a brief about this case. She was an old friend, a childhood friend, and she first came to give me her case in May 2016, immediately after my internship. So I did the whole detailed case taking and everything, and I could come to a good remedy. But then she disappeared for 6 months. Then again she came to me after 6 months, and then she's like, now give me medicines. Now I want to take your treatment. So you get people like those, especially people who know you and who you are relatives and friends. They do take you for granted somewhere. So this is her USG report of 2014. You can see PCOD. Then in 2016 again we can see PCOD. Then 17 again we can see PCOD, right? So when she came to me, she already had PCOD since the last 3-4 years. She had been taking OC pills also since the last 2-3 years. Then she came on to hormonal injections, which also she had been taking for the last almost 8 to 10 months. But somehow, even the hormonal injections were not having an effect on her since the last 3-4 months. So the story is like she was married 8 years back and she had a baby of 7 years. And after that, for some time, the periods were normal. When obviously the periods started getting irregular, so she opted for the obvious choice for many, for OC pills. Then she tried to do follicular studies because she wanted to conceive desperately. But nothing happened. Then she went on to hormonal injections. And then because of the OC pills, as we know, there's nausea, vomiting, there's weight gain. So when she came to me, she was 79 kgs. And her height is barely 4'10". So obviously we can understand, how it would look. And then she also started with hirsutism, which is an obvious sign of PCOD, as you all know. We see her menstrual history. So the last period she got was in July. That was also after she had taken a hormonal injection. So obviously it was anovulatory periods. Her bleeding was usually dark colored. It had kind of offensive odor, and the staining was delible. And she had pimples on the face before her menses. The leukorrhea was like white of an egg, which was sticky and which used to cause her itching. Then she also told me that she had this fungal infection in which she had these huge pustular boils on her thighs, and she used to apply creams on that, and it had become blackish discoloration after that. And she used to have this burning in when passing urine, and only warm water used to help her a bit, and this was also since many years now. Then we see in her generals, she used to feel more hungry in the morning comparatively. The thirst wasn't as much. And as we know, after the first baby, the sleep was a bit disturbed. Now let us understand her as an individual. PCOD is okay, fine. She has that disease. But let us understand her as an individual. So she was like the only sister in 3 brothers. And she was very pampered at home. Earlier, she had this ambition of becoming a doctor, studying and becoming a doctor. But the parents were like keen on getting her married as soon as possible. So around in her 11th standard, like the junior college we say, she met a guy through that arranged marriage protocol, and she fell in love with that guy. And she gave up all her ambitions, and even the husband was very young. So they were like in the 18 to 21 years bracket, both of them. Pretty young age. And earlier, the husband was working very well. He was working with his father in the family business. Then somehow, slowly, they started going down financially. Then there were issues in the house also. She was like the elder sister in her sister-in-law. There was this younger brother of her husband who then got married, and even his wife came home. So she now became like the responsible figure, the elder daughter-in-law. Who has to look after the family. And she had some issues with the younger sister-in-law, who was a bit rude and by nature, and she was very sensitive. So even that rudeness would affect her then. And then she wouldn't answer back, but then she would sit alone and cry. And when she used to cry, she has that suffocation feeling in her chest. And by nature, she used to prefer sitting at home, be comfortable, being like a couch potato. And she loved being a housewife. And since childhood, she was never demanding. She had this unique quirk habit of laughing at the wrong places, or she would just laugh involuntarily anywhere. So, and she was more interested in romantic and comedy movies. And now, though, she was very desperate to have a baby. I want to conceive, I want to conceive. And the responsibility that was given to her of the whole house, she somehow didn't want to take it. When I asked her about the most stressful situation, she mentioned that everything aside, the responsibility, the work factor, everything, she was most affected by her husband. Any small tiff or fight between the both of them, and her mood will be off the whole day. Unless the problem or the issue is sorted with the husband, she would be in a very bad, sullen mood, not wanting to talk to anyone, nothing. And she says that nothing else affects me like that. Then we see other situations. Earlier, they were living in a joint family, and the father in law couldn't support. So they had to separate out. And now she and her husband and the kid were on their own. And the husband's earnings started decreasing more. So there were more financial issues. So she started working from home to support the family, like, making chocolates and making cakes and artistic things like packing things and all that. And her disappointment in her husband went on increasing slowly, slowly like this. She used to cry alone and didn't want anyone to console her. Then she had these dreams of ghosts. She would say that they were frightful dreams and very lifelike dreams, but she didn't remember the whole dream to narrate it to me. She also had this fear of ghosts and she used to startle from noise. Then there were other physical symptoms like headache when she used to talk or laugh too much, and which was also aggravated when talking. And there was this hammering kind of headache, and which was better by pressure. So she used to tie this, dupatta or a cloth on her forehead. And if she talked too much, like if she meets me after a long time, or she meets other relatives after a long time, cousins, and if you talk too much when you're in your, friends or relatives, and then her voice would go hoarse. And she would also have palpitations when she was angry. So now we have, collected all the data. Now, how do we do the analysis? So, being an old friend, obviously there was a bit of prejudice that was there. Means I always thought her to be, Cancadia carp kind of short, stout, fat, and flabby, and couch potato, enjoying romantic and comedy movies and all that. But we have to be true to our science. We have to take the case in as much detail as possible. Be it anyone, be it your parents, be it your relatives, be it your best friend, or be it your any close old friends. So one way of analysis, it is to take the symptoms, put it in the repertory, and we would get some polycrest remedies. And what would we do? We would choose one most obvious remedy from that, and we would give it to the patient. And if somehow it doesn't work within 2 to 4 months, six months, we will change the remedy and give another remedy from those polycrest remedies, right? But there is another way of analysis, and this way is to understand the patient as a remedy, as a live walking talking materia medica in front of you. And this way I feel is like the best way, because you understand the patient in depth apart from the symptoms that she has told you, and also you understand the remedy. So you won't miss it the next time it walks into your clinic or your OPD. So in this case, what are the important points? Would you like to share some? How do I read the comments?
I'll tell you if there are any suggestions. I think you can go to the PPT. I can.
Okay. So few points are like, she was pampered and cosseted, being the only sister, being the only daughter. She didn't, she was unable to take the whole responsibility of the joint family. And she loved being at home and being comfortable. Kind of confirms the Calcaria Cup theory that I had, right? But this is where it is, the important part comes in. When you are taking the case, there is this kind of filter that should always be on in your mind. You should understand what the patient is telling you, from that what you have to collect and what you have to take for the analysis. So there was something more to her apart from this, and that was she fell in love at a very, very young age, and she gave up all her ambitions for that. And the husband turned out to be pretty immature and irresponsible. Still, everything pertaining to him affects her too much, right? So, now what does this represent in our MN? Any suggestions?
Yeah, I'll tell you because on while streaming it takes little bit time, so we'll have to wait for just a few seconds before we can see the suggestions. Okay, so we have some suggestions of remedies. Dr. Srishti says arsenic. Dr. Mohammadi Patel says lycopodium.
Okay.
Okay, okay.
Yes, Dr. Indranil says that we should try to find out the constitutional remedy. Agreed. That's what. That's what our aim should be.
Yeah, Dr. Bharat is suggesting natrum carb.
Hmm.
Okay.
Dr. Gorang's influence still left? Natrum carb?
Yeah, maybe today is natrum day. So that
Okay,
natrum
CPR,
root sepia. Yeah.
APIS. Okay, so shall I move on with my analysis?
Yeah.
Okay. So this represents Natramur. Why? Because the relationship of Natramur is of a friendship or romance, a relation on a one-on-one basis, right? And she always feels that she'll be let down or betrayed or disappointed by the person her trust depends on or the one she loves. So here it was her husband, right? But then we see in Natramur by Dr. Shankaran, this is from the Soul of Remedies, that the Natramur woman falls in love with someone, and that is the only person she will love and hate both. And all that matters is how he treats her. Her entire mood depends on this. So that's what we saw in our patient, right? Any small tiff or fight with the husband, and her mood goes off, right? And then we have this theme that they invest everything in that one person or one relationship, and then they like to dwell on the grief and nourish that grief and think about it, and that's how it comes, like dwells on past disagreeable events. That's what Natramur has, right? So this is how we gave her Natramur, and now we repertorize and we see that laughing involuntary also has Natramur. Then weeping alone when alone, brooding, everything then comes across with Natramur. So the repertoire should be like a bridge to confirm our analysis and our theory. And then WhatsApp, now the WhatsApp follow-up is the trend right now, right? So then she messages me that she got a menses, and the flow, it was for 5 days, and the flow was also good. Then I still confirmed from her that, did you take any other medicines from the gynac or any hormonal pills or something? She's like, no, I've not taken any medicines, only yours. And then she tells me, I've lost weight also, I lost 5 kgs of weight. I was like, that's very good. Then she was doing overall very good. She was getting her regular periods. She had not taken any hormonal pill after that. Then also she was having a menses regularly. And then I continued her on Natramur 1M, 2 doses twice a day, followed by SL for the next month. So then she got pregnant. She conceived finally. She developed a symptom of herpes of the genitalia in her pregnancy. And then she told me that, I had it 5 years back also, and it would burn her tremendously. All day long, it would be burning her, and even going to the washroom was a big torture. So when I go to the repertory and I see eruptions, herpes in the female genitalia, I see Natrum Mur there. So obviously I prescribed her Natrum Mur, and that's how I actually prefer doing. That once I get a good constitutional remedy which is helping the patient, so even in any acute, I first try to see whether the constitution helps or not. If it isn't helping or if the picture is completely different, then I opt for a different remedy. And then we see the anomaly scan, and she was blessed with a very healthy baby girl, finally. And like I told you, she was into chocolates and cakes and all that. So this is the chocolate bouquet that she presented me with, which was obviously very delicious. So let us study something about the remedy Natrum Mur. As we know, this is from the third row of the periodic table, right? This row, the identity and relationship row. So it is a salt. It belongs, the natrum element belongs to the first column, and the chlorine, the halogen element, belongs to the 17th column. And we see some concepts like, there is this sadness and this depression, there is this, restriction, and they are very sensitive. And then in the muriaticum element, we see the self-pity, the, mother part, the attention part, the disappointment part. So what is the main feeling of Natrum Mur? It is that, the one person they depend on will let them down, will disappoint them. And like in calcarea or magnesium, it is of dependence. But in Natrum Mur, it is of romance or a friendship, but on a one-to-one basis. This is very important to understand in Natrum Mur. It is a one-on-one relationship, right? This person has this fear that she will be emotionally hurt or disappointed. Hence, they become very reserved and they prefer not meeting people, not having conversation with more people. And when they are hurt, they completely withdraw within themselves. And there is this great sadness that they have, that brooding, crying alone, sitting alone and crying, that, they avoid getting that hurt. That's what their main thing is. And it is one to one. And all that matters is how he treats her, like we told earlier. Then there is this one thing in Natrum Mur that introvertedness of Deas, they want to express through art or an organization. So we see in this patient that how she restructured it, and it came out through her chocolates, her bouquets, the packing that she did. That artistic aptitude, it came out through this. And when they try to suppress their feelings completely, but when you prod them more, and they get sentimental, and there is this flood of weeping and crying that comes out then. So we have always heard that Ignatia is the acute of Natrum Mur. But why is that so? Because this grief, if it is new or fresh, acute, we give Ignatia. But when this grief and this, disappointment and it is there, and it, becomes chronic and becomes like a scar. And only when you prod it or when you trigger it, it comes out. Then it becomes Natrum Mur. So that is why Ignatia is the acute of Natrum Mur. So, any comments, any feedbacks?
Yeah, there were few suggestions of remedy which came later on. Calgarea silicata, Staphylos agria, plant kingdom, sepia, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I
Yeah,
think questions we can take in the end. You can start with the second case, and maybe in the end we'll take some questions from the participants. Okay.
sure.
Yeah.
So, let us move on to the second case now. Again, this is like a typical case in our clinic or OPD. A housewife comes with many complaints, many diseases, and as soon as she starts speaking, she starts weeping and crying, and then you are in a fix. Now, what to do? Offer her tissues, console her, sympathize or empathize? What to do, right? So, she had this hypothyroidism. Then she had this early OA of both the knees at a very young age. Then this is the allopath prescription telling her to take Thyronorm 15 mg. This is the uric acid report, which is high. So we know that this case is a known case of hypothyroidism, hyperuricemia, early OA in a very 38 years old patient, and she's on Thyronorm 50 mg, right? And she has this right heel pain also occasionally, and she has to wear slippers and walk. And she tries to walk barefoot, it hurts a lot, and she ends up limping. And she starts weeping. She weeps and she weeps and she weeps. Even when she tells me that, people tell her that for thyroid, you have to take lifelong medications. Now you cannot get off thyroid, and there is this hair fall because of it. And she's like, this is such a big issue, lifelong I'm stuck with taking medicines. And when I told her, no, with homeopathy can surely help you get off the medicines, and get completely healthy. And then I told her how homeopathy helps a person become healthy from inside. Means we treat the roots. We don't cut the tree. We treat the roots. The cure is from the roots. That's what Dr. Hahnemann also told in Aphorism 2, right? Cure is what? Removing and annihilating the disease from its in its entirety, right? We are not just cutting the fruits. Like, what do allopaths do? They give the symptoms and the symptoms should get better, but we don't feel that, right? We treat the disease completely. Once the roots are eradicated, obviously the disease goes off, the tree goes off. So when I told her like this, talking very nicely to her, sweetly to her, and again she starts crying. So, but then she told me that I have hope that I will get better. So now we understand her mind state. She's very, very sensitive, as we all understood. And she tells me that I take things very easily to my heart. Then she tells me that I was very close to my mom. And she was always there for me. You know that ginger garlic paste that we put in food? That also her mom cleaned it and made it for her and gave it to her. And she's like, now she's not there. Actually, her mom has shifted abroad with her younger sister after she got married. So she is in India, obviously. So she misses that part a lot. And she's like, I remember my mom for everything. I know my mom is praying for me. And then again, she starts weeping. So obviously, I used up a box of tissues that day. We can all understand from that. And then she tells me that I remember my mom for everything. And she had such a good bonding with her mom that any issue or discussion, the mom would first do with her, then tell the other two sisters that they have. Now that she's far, I miss her a lot. She's like, if my mom would have been there near me, I would have lie down in her lap and I would feel such peace. It's like, everything, I have everything with me because my mom is there with me, and nothing can go wrong because my mom is there with me. Then she tells me that no one can harm me when my mom is there. Even my the strongest or the biggest enemy, she cannot harm me. She is like, my savior, my weapon, and the boundary that something is there, and nothing can harm me. She prays and she blows on me, religious stuffs, and I'm also praying for her, and then again she's weeping, and also she was better also after weeping. So we see that she's very, very attached and very emotionally dependent on the mom. And then she tells me, like, her dad had remarried someone else and left them. So only their mom brought them up. And she sacrificed her whole life for her three kids. She used to give tuitions to, financially support the sisters. Then this patient did business management from a very good college in Mumbai. She's like, I got the best of education, the best of upbringing, because my mom was there and she played the role of a father as a mother. And then she also told herself that compared to the sisters, I feel the most. I miss my mom the most. And then again, the weeping starts. Then I asked her about her anger. She's like, when I argue with my husband, then I get palpitation. Or when I'm excited, then I get palpitations. My hands feel cold. And there is this little breathlessness that I feel more on expiration. So she's like, when I'm angry, I feel a bit breathless. Then I drink water. Then I feel, something will happen to me. Then she's like, my mom is not here, something will happen to me. And then again, the crying goes on. So then, I have learned this from Dr. Shankaran. I have studied under Dr. Shankaran since the last 10 years, since I was in my second year of this BHMS. So, Sir tells us if there is a person who's very influenced by a certain person, and talks about him, whether loving or whether hating. So, you should ask more about that person. Why? Because there are some qualities of that person that this person will also imbibe, right? So I'm like, why is the mom so important? She's like, she bears the kid for 9 months. She underwent C-section, and the mom is someone who wakes up from the slightest noise that a kids make. when the kids are very small then. And she suppresses her own needs for her kids. The mom never tells attention to her kids. And when the kids are happy, the mom becomes happy. The selflessness of the mom. Then I asked her, tell me the qualities of a mom. So this is another question that I have learned from Sir, that how do you understand that, what is the qualities that a person is looking out for. So she tells me that my mom understands me even without, I telling her anything aloud. She understands me without me saying something. She comes to know from my voice that I have cried or wept, some time back. She's my mother, the whole and soul. And only my mom is important for me. And as we know, next starts the weeping. She then tells me again that, when I lie down in her lap, I feel so peaceful. Even after marriage, when she used to get these headaches and migraines, just seeing my mom would make me better. And even after marriage, it took a lot of, it was very difficult for her to adjust. She's like, I left my mom and I came here and all that. So when we have this Ramzan, when we do this early morning breakfast at 4 or 5, the mom used to give her breakfast or cornflakes in bed. And she's like, no one will do that for you after your marriage. You're alone, you're on your own. But my mom used to do that for me. We see some generalities. Her appetite was increased, and she wanted to eat sweets when she wakes up in the morning, like, figs and dates and almonds. And she was a hot patient, and her weight was increasing pretty rapidly now, obviously because of the thyroid. Then we see that in cravings, there wasn't much cravings as such. Sweets a bit, ice cream a bit, but there was nothing which she craved a lot. Then I mentioned to you about the heel pain. So she got an X-ray done, and there was this calcaneal spur she had since the last 2 3 years, which was obviously very painful. And she had to walk limp, and then she could not never walk barefoot. She had to always wear slippers. Then we told about the early OA, and she had this knee pain, and there is this dryness in the knee joint, and she had to take supplements for it. And she told me that she used to do treadmill on an incline earlier, which maybe was a triggering factor for the early OA. Then the migraines, it happens. It used to happen very frequently for her. Any thinking too much, any crying for her mom, any travel or exertion, and then her migraine would start. She would have this pain in the temples, and she would want to rub it or tie it with the dupatta or with the cloth. And she had to take painkillers earlier. And again, she's like, my mom used to press my head, so I want someone to press my head. She didn't have any associated nausea, vomiting with the headache. Then I asked her about her fears. So she's like, she was more towards the religious side, and she's like, how will I face God? I'm not prepared for it. Means I do so many sins, but still God doesn't let us down. He never gets angry on us. If it would have been any human being in that place, how would that human being have insulted us? But when people, say it directly on your face, now I feel very bad, because whatever I do it with an open heart. I don't do it because someone has done something for me. I'll do it very sincerely with an open heart. And I don't like hypocrisy also. Then we understood the nature, sensitive, emotional, very helpful. She'll go out of the way to help people, even for the neighbors. If someone is in the hospital, she will be ready to stay the nights there, because people obviously avoid staying nights. They'll go in the day and come back. But she's like, no, I get tired but I feel very happy from inside after helping people. And then she tells me, I want to be with my husband. Being with my husband is like out of the world. And small things happen to me, matter more to me, like her touch, like his touch. I love that more. And then I ask her about the experience of, being with the husband. She's like, it's like peaceful. It's like the satisfaction that you get after having, sex. And then she's like, it's like when we eat a mango, the sweetness and the peace and the coolness that you feel when you have mango. It's like, it's like a heaven like feeling, like we get things without asking, like someone who's understanding you without saying. And when you expect and you don't get, that affects her the most. So her menses were scanty since the last 3 to 4 years because of thyroid. And we can read the other symptoms. And it was irregular also. So now, how do we analyze this case? Any suggestions?
Yeah, we have few suggestions. Carcinosin.
Hmm.
Okay. Dr. L.K. Sharma says some muriaticum element. Dr. Srishti is suggesting natrium mure. Dr.
Hmm.
Mantasha is suggesting magnesium mure. Okay.
Natramure,
Uh,
why? Because the first case was Natramure, so again Natramure. That's why.
so I think that is the probability. If the first one was natrium mure, this will be this
And we
won't be
have
natrium mure.
today's
Okay.
like Natramure.
Okay. So Dr. Mohammadi says magnesium mure. Okay. Few more suggestions. Lack. Okay. Dr. Gauri says lack remedies. Okay.
Very good suggestions. People are obviously learning a lot from the MM series. I can see that now.
Okay. Calcarea mure. Okay.
Mhm. That's also a very interesting remedy.
Okay. Dr. Arsebet Thuros, she says metridonal remedy. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, lac remedy. I think, yeah. So we have many suggestions of netramure, magnure, lac remedies, mineral remedies. Okay, so we can go ahead with the analysis.
Sure. So, like I told you, the first way of analysis is, what, putting symptoms in the software and then coming up with some polytest remedies like pulsatilla, magnesium, silica, calcarea, lyco, sepia, ignatia, right? Phosphorus, natramure again. But another way of analysis is, filtering, like I told you earlier. What is it that is very sure about the case? Like there is no two views about it, right? Like this is a very common joke that if in a seminar you show a case, no two homeopaths will come to the same remedy. Why? Because everyone has their own perspective, and they have their own way of analyzing a case. So here now, let us see that what is it that is for sure in the case and everyone agrees with it. So this is how I have learned from Shankran sir that this is how you can analyze cases, and you can be very sure of a prescription then on. It's not like just trial and error basis. Give one, if it's not working, give another. You have to be so sure of a prescription that when the patient comes next time, there is going to be some changes. This is the surety. This is the confidence that I feel everyone should have in their practice. So the most important point was she's very emotional. I think everyone agrees with that. She's very sensitive, she's very yielding, and she's very attached to her mom, right? And what was important was understanding without saying, getting without asking, and the care and the affection that she wanted. She would go out of her way for helping people. Do we all agree that these are the most important points in this case? Any comments, Pratik?
Yes.
Everyone agreeing with it, or we still have more views?
We'll have to wait for a few seconds. Yeah, yeah. I think the participants agree.
Oh, great. So this is like, the pointer has hit the bull's eye finally. So where do we see this in a Materia Medica? It is the magnesium theme. The magnesium theme of infantile dependence and this forsakenness that the trust will be betrayed. And where do we see this more? That they depend on their friends, or there is a group of people or someone they depend on and who will care for you everywhere. And they depend so much upon that person that everything is like, they shouldn't let them down. It's like that. And when they are disappointed, they have this delusion of being friendless that we know magnesium for, right? And they are so friendly that they'll go out of their way to care for others to help people, right? And still they'll feel that I have no friends. And they won't even reveal their emotions to their closest people, even to their spouses. It's very difficult for them to, reveal their emotions. Why? Because then that spouse has to be as per that level, that capability. If he's not there, then again they'll feel disappointed. So when we see the follow-up, the knee pain since that she had since so many years, it was comparatively much better. The left knee was there, right knee was better. The heel pain, she was like, it's not there. I can walk without the slippers. Then I reduced the Thyronorm to 25. This is how I believe in tapering allopathic medications. That if it's helping the patient, I taper it slowly, slowly, and then I stop it. Then now this time she was reading about her kid because he was, I think, in the 10th standard and he was not studying properly. And that weeping for the mom, oh, finally it reduced a lot. She like barely cried for 5 minutes this time in the follow-up compared to the 45 minutes last time. My tissue box got saved, I guess. Then after a few months again the follow-up, the knee pain was much better. There was this pain when she was, she used to stand from sitting. And the heel pains were better. There were no migraines. The menses were regular. Then I asked her to stop the Thyronorm. And obviously continued her on Magnur 1M, 2 doses for 2 days, followed by SL for the next month. Before thyroid profile, the levels came down to normal. The uric acid came down to normal. And again, now what's that follow up? How can you miss that trend, right? She's like, I'm feeling much better. So now let us study about the remedy magnesium muriaticum. This is again from the third row of the periodic table. So I think today is like the third row day. Natrium carb, natrium mute, now magnesium mute. Right? So what does this magnesium mute person feel? He feels that he will be let down and disappointed by his friends or the people, he trusts so much, depends so much on. And they are these people, they are very coped up people. They prefer being busy with themselves or, going and helping people. It's like that. And though they are very friendly to people, but they won't open up easily. They'll keep a distance because if they reveal their emotions even to the closest people, like I told you earlier, they'll get disappointed. And how do we understand this? That from nature that both feel disappointed and betrayed. This is because of the halogen element, the chlorine element, and they feel irritable and angry. But both of them prefer not expressing their emotions, right? And then what do magnesium people do then? They respond to, they try to care more for children and animals. Why? Because they feel, these people are not going to betray us. Animals and children, like the most innocent and the most naivest of people. And they won't disappoint me, betray me. So they prefer, taking care on, looking after these people. So they work in a small nursery, look after kids. Then one thing very important in magnesium is they either have plenty of dreams or they'll have no dreams at all. Okay, so the dreams can be like, going astray, getting lost, robbers of the dead relatives they'll see, or falling into the water, or, like their family is in danger and they are rescuing them. Then one dream, which is, I have seen Dr. Shankaran take it a lot, and even Dr. Gaurang mentioned about it, dreams of unsuccessful efforts. Like the relatives and friends are going away on train or a bus and they are leaving them behind. Now let us understand with the remedy magnesium cup. We use magnesium cup pretty commonly, but Magnure is very rarely used, right? So the first thing we remember is Dr. Kent had told us about orphaned children or the feeling of being orphaned. Right? So what is it? These magnesium people, they are so unaware of what they feel, that they completely repress their emotions. And it comes out in the form of an anxiety. Like carbon people, they are very anxious always that something will happen, something will happen or something bad will happen or like that. So there is repression which results in anxiety. Obviously, it has to come out somewhere. That's what we see in diseases, that there is some stress, some issue in the life of the patient, and it comes out in the form of a disease. And the repressed emotion come out in the form of dreams. That's why so many times we see that magnesium people say that I see so many dreams that when I get up in the morning, I feel so exhausted that I was continuously, active in the dream. And then one main difference between magnesium carb and magnesium mure that Dr. Shankaran says is magnesium mure will be lost outside the house, like for example in a forest or somewhere. And magnesium carb will be lost inside his own house. So what does this mean? That the magnesium mule person, even if he's not home, he'll go out and he'll try to make a home somewhere outside. But magnesium carb is such that he feels so orphaned, so homeless, that nothing in this world is going to help him, that he doesn't even try to make that effort of making a home outside. This is what mac carb is. And this is the main differentiation between mac carb and magnesium. I remember I had this one case of my relative. She was sleepless and she had lost her husband very recently. She one dream that she told me, she's like, I feel I'm lost in my own home. I cannot find the way through the passages or the rooms. Being a very small house, like they are in Mumbai. Then some magnesium patients will say that they do not dream at all. Now, why is this? There because there is this strong barrier between the conscious and the subconscious mind. Dreaming is subconscious part of the mind, right? And this is a very, very severe repression. They do not even allow themselves to dream. And when they do not allow yourself to express, then what will happen? A pathology will come out, right? And they feel sleepy and there is an exhausted, unrefreshed feeling on waking, like I told you, right? I dream so much that I'm completely exhausted in the morning. This is like magnesium people actually say this because I'm working on my thesis. I'm seeing many hormonal cases now, and magnesium comes up a lot. And this is, they say that I see so many dreams. That morning, I'm like, I don't want to wake up. I feel like I should sleep for some more time. Then it is extremely, Dr. Shankaran says that it's the person should say that, I don't see any dream at all. This is so rare. You tell them to jog their memory, come out with some old dream, something, and they're like, I don't have any dreams. I don't remember any dreams. Unrefreshing sleep, like I told you. Now, the first remedy that we studied, Natrum and Magnesium Mule. How would you differentiate the both of them? So obviously, Natrum is from the first column, right? And Magnesium is from the second column. So the first column is like, they cannot even think of living without that other person. And Magnesium is a bit different. So how is it different? So the main feeling is this suppression and the repression. What does suppression means? It's like something is coming up and you suppress it and you push it down. While repression means you don't even allow it to come up. So natrums suppress their emotions, while magnesium repress them. Repress meaning is what? That even the patients are unaware that they have those things. That's why when you ask about their cravings and aversions occasionally in magnesium patients, they're like, no, I don't have any particular craving or aversion. Why? Because they don't allow themselves to feel it. Why? Why don't they allow themselves to feel it? Because they feel that if they express their emotions or if they express their cravings, it will be like a demand they are showing to people. And they don't want to demand anyone anything. Why? Because they are like, we are orphaned and there is no one that we can. What does a kid do? A kid demands to the parents or to the people who loves him. So these people are like, no, we have no one, and we shouldn't show any demand or any emotions or any cravings or aversions to people, because then people will leave them and go away. So this is the main difference between natrum and magnesium: the suppression and the repression. I guess if we understand this, this helps us a lot in patients like these, and especially in hormonal disorders. Like earlier, many people suggested lac remedies. So what I've seen in my practice now, I've been practicing since the last, I think, 4-5 years now. Since my internship, I had started practicing. So I've seen that in hormonal remedies like hormonal diseases like PCOD and thyroid, natrum, magnesium, calcareas, and the lacs, they all come up a lot. And when you study from Dr. Mahesh Gandhi, he also tells us that these are related somewhere. So these people feel that they should not make any demands on anyone, should not ask anyone for help. There is this total repression in magnesium. So what do we have time, or it's almost 10? I think that's the time we have to stop. Pratik?
No, I think you can take as much as you want.
No. We cannot, trade on people's time if they have. We'll take up questions for 5-10 minutes. It's almost 10.
No, whatever you're it's okay. We have some time. If you want to share another case, you can do that. Not a problem.
So the participants will help me. What should I do?
We'll check whether they want another case or they want to digest this much only. Let us hear from them.
I think, yeah, that's a very good thing, because you understand whatever, and understand in its entirety, in its 100%, rather than, just taking in too much and not assimilating things. I feel it's better you take little and you assimilate it, use it in your practice, and then come back. So I know if there might be any more questions, if people,
I think
later.
you can continue with the case. People are very much awake and they want you to share another case.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So this is another case again of a hormonal disorder. So she came with the complaints of PCOD and hypothyroidism, and she had PCOD since the last 5 to 6 years, and was obviously, like I told you, on OC pills, because that's what people do. And she had conceived her first kid, and she had to go for fertility treatment for that. So we see the thyroid profile and we see the sonography report. So one thing that I want to tell you is that, case taking starts before the patient enters the clinic. Like this patient, she was so restless that I was taking a follow up before she came, and she was continuously knocking on my door. And she's like, from the waiting room, she was knocking on the consulting room. How much time? How much time? How much time? I'm like, please wait, please sit. I have to complete this follow up, then I can take you up. So I feel the case taking starts even before the patient enters the clinic, and you should note what the patient is doing. So she had a history of miscarriage 4 days back when she came for a new case, and she also had problems or complications during the earlier pregnancy. And the baby barely weighed like 1.2 kgs. It was a premature delivery. So, and also one more thing is like how the patient talks during the case, the words that the patient is using, the pace of talking. I think this is very important. So when you are taking the case, especially the new case, the 100% attention should be on the patient. And she's like, PCOD hit me after 12th standard. And I was very skinny earlier. Then I started getting fat. Then after 20 years of age, everything started. My menses last for 3 days, and I get menses after 45 to 60 days. And she didn't even remember when she got her last menses. And she also had fibroids earlier. And she tells me about this back pain she has since the C-section, and it aggravates when she bends or walks. She also has this body ache since the last 5-6 years and feels a weakness and vertigo. She says that I have OCD. I started dieting when I was 20, when she started getting fat, and I did not eat at all. I used to fast all the time. And then if things are not in proper place, now I get hyper. Like the thing should not go from year to year. I get angry, and then unless that thing is on the proper place, I'll be focused on that. Then she tells me about the headache symptoms that she gets. That it's comes on, it gradually increases. It's on the forehead above the eyebrows, and it's like a throbbing kind of pain. And I want to apply pressure in it more. Then she tells me about the vertigo symptoms, that it's like when I think a lot, I get this weakness and exhaustion. I want to lie down, and I feel, and again, when I'm trying to rise up, I feel this vertigo. So now the mind state and moods. We can also confirm what we had observed earlier, before she entered, when she's speaking about the other complaints. She was talking very fast when narrating her symptoms. Okay. Then I asked her about this, are you as fast in everything? And she accepted that, yeah, I know I'm very fast in talking, eating, walking, and everything. I'm very fast. And she's like, I want to do more than one thing at one time. And even in that, she is hurrying, and she's like, I want to do this, do this, do this, do this, and do many things together. And one problematic thing was she would hurry herself, but also make others hurry in doing things. Like, she was waiting outside in the consultation room, in the waiting room, and she's making me hurry that, get done with the patient fast and take me. And she would become very irritable and angry, when things would not go her way, when people wouldn't do it fast. And she would feel this trembling all over when angry. And obviously her anger was very fast, and everything should be according to her way and in hurry. And she tells me, no, I'm not dominating or anything like that. And in her fears, she says that, I feel something will happen. I am more of pessimistically, I think that, if this happens, then what will happen? If this happens, then this will happen. I keep on thinking. And even when I wake up, it's because of thoughts, and it's in the tension that, I also don't know what I'm thinking about and what I'm anxious about. There are so many thoughts in my mind. She likes spicy, she likes non-veg, and she likes fish. And she's like, I don't like dieting, but I do dieting. I force myself to do dieting because I won't compromise in anything. And she has this too much hyperacidity. After she has spicy food, she feels bilious, and she has to have something every 2-3 hours, so that this biliousness is better. Fasting gets to her a lot. She cannot tolerate being hungry. There is this offensive odor kind of in her perspiration. And she has this recurrent UTI when she, stops and, doesn't go for urination on time. So the other symptoms was she had this profuse leukorrhea, which was thick yellow itching and which stiffened the lining. The menses were bright red or dark red occasionally. And she had this, irritability and angriness and stuff, PMS symptoms before the menses. Then she told me some other symptoms like, when I drink cold water, my tonsils get hit. Like she's like, I like fresh lime soda, but when I drink it, my throat pain starts. So now again we have gathered the data. How do we analyze this case? Any suggestions?
Yeah, we have some suggestions already. Dr. Tejaswini says phosphorus. Dr. Mantasha, Dr. Meenakshi says sulfuric acid. Dr. Srishti says arsenic. We have pulsatilla. We have lachesis, arsenic alb again.
I think people have a clue over here that we are talking about Hodro today. So why don't you suggest from that directly? Because I told you my
Yeah,
thesis.
mostly mineral. Maybe, yeah, mostly mineral. Third or fourth row.
So I'm giving you such a prejudiced hint.
Sepia, no. Dr. Garima is saying sepia, so we have something from different kingdom. Not.
Yeah. We should always be open for that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Mercury, physostigma. Okay, interesting. Dr. Bharat says arsenic or sulfuric acid. Yeah, good to see you, Dr. Bharat, back on series. Arsenic, yeah. So majority, yes, I think we have these suggestions: arsenic or sulfuric acid, or yeah.
Mhm. Okay, so let's move forward. Now, anchor. This is one more technique of case analysis that I've learned from Shankran sir. That, whatever you're sure about, make it your anchor. Like the boat has an anchor in the sea, or else what would happen? It would just, sway here and there. So that's what happens with us in our case taking. We see some symptoms and we're like, this is sepia. We see some symptoms, this is like nitramure. We see some symptoms, this is like, mercury, like someone told, physostigma. So this is what happens, you get prejudiced very easily because you are seeing only one view of it. But if we anchor ourselves on the short symptoms, we are in a much more better position to move forward with the case. So what do we see here? The hurry haste. I think everyone agrees with that. The most important and sure and consistent aspect was her hurry and haste in everything. We saw everywhere, from before her entering the consultation room, to her life, to her occupation, to her walking, eating, everything, right? So when we repertorize and we see sulfuric acid comes out shouting loud, and everybody must hurry because of her. This is one important symptom. Everybody must hurry. And then we read from Fatak's Materia Medica, one of my favorite books of Materia Medica, that must do everything in great hurry. Impatient and angry because things move slowly, right? Then that it is hurried in eating, in her movements, and she cannot do things fast enough. Hurried in walking, writing, occupation. And what is the reason behind this hurry? That constant anxiety to finish the work ASAP, as fast as possible. ASAP is like, the lingo that we use nowadays. Everything should be ASAP. Then we see this rubrics given by Dr. Shankaran in his book Soul of Remedies: hurry in eating, hurry in mental work, hurry in movements, hurry in occupation, impatience about trifles. And then there is another method is like sectoral totalities. You take parts of it, like the mind symptoms, then you repertorize them. You take the vertigo symptoms and you repertorize those. You take the headache symptoms, you repertorize those. So, and then you take the female symptoms and you repertorize those. So, this, how does this help us? That you are not making a bhelpuri of things, you're not mixing everything together, because sulfuric acid is not a very well proved remedy. So, if you take all the symptoms together, sulfuric acid won't come up highly on the repertorization sheet. But if you take it, break it into parts and you do the totality, you come up with sulfuric acid in every repertory sheet, and you're so sure about your remedy then. Then we read from the Borix Materia Medica that the debility, the weakness, exhaustion to acid is why? Because of the digestive tract. They have this relaxed feeling in the stomach and they have this craving for stimulants. Then we read from Fataks again that the weakness is out of proportion. She told us that I feel very weak. I feel vertigo because of that. And I am in so much, anxiety and thoughts that when I wake up in the morning, I'm still in tension, I'm still in thoughts, and I still feel weak. Then there is this acidity and the sour adaptations and the biliousness that she had. So obviously I prescribe her sulfuric acid 1 mg. Then we see in 15 days, her energy levels were really good. And she's like, I don't get stressed now and I can do my work much more better. The kid she has, she can concentrate on her more. And she's like, I feel so relaxed in doing my work, I'm getting good sleep. I feel very refreshed when I wake up in the morning. And I feel this coolness and calmness from inside. I don't know why, but I am feeling relaxed somehow. And she had a headache once, so I'd given her SOS. That is, SOS is sulfuric acid 1 mg. And she's like, no, there are no troubling thoughts also, and even the headache got better with SOS. I didn't take any allopathy, nothing. There was no acidity, no backache, no vertigo, no body ache. And in a year, we see that the headache is like a thing of the past. And she's doing completely fine. She lost 9 kgs in 6 months without any rigorous dieting like earlier, that crash diet of not eating at all. She has no acidity, no headaches, no physical complaints. And she also became pregnant for the second time now. And it was completely fine. There were no complications. The pregnancy was going very smoothly. And she was very calm and very relaxed, looking after the first kid also and doing things for the second pregnancy. So we see the thyroid profile. It got normal. And even the sonography, we see the sonography of the obstetrician. So let us understand the remedy, sulfuric acid. So what is an acid basically? Acid is like effort followed by exhaustion, right? Every acid has this, too much effort followed by exhaustion. But in sulfuric acid, it represents the need for that effort to be recognized, to appear good, and to have a position of respect. And when we see that this constant hurriedness and anxiety, and why is it there? Because they want to finish their work as fast as possible. And it is like an exaggerated need to make an effort, and then they get exhausted, and then they get irritable, and then they get this prostration of mind, and then they are discouraged. So Dr. Morrison has written very interesting thing, that by metaphor, it is like a byproduct of today's frantic pace, the culture that we have today. What earlier there were carriages, and people used to take animals and camels and horses for traveling. People used to take days and months to travel from one place to another. And now it's like cars and aeroplanes are there. You reach USA within a couple of hours. So, and cars, they move at 120 kilometers per hour. So this is what our life has become now. We want that instant gratification. We send a message to people on WhatsApp and we want that double tick to come ASAP. We cannot wait. And this is this hurriedness which is there in sulfuric acid, And this is this hurriedness also that has come in our lives now. We, in a way, the millennials, or maybe the older people are much more calmer, but the millennials, we cannot wait for things. We are so impatient. We know that instant gratification. Everything has to be answered quick, fast. ASAP is like a lingo. Everywhere it is as soon as possible, ASAP. And how do we summarize and understand what we have learned today? The take home message for sulfuric acid is the exhaustion because of the haste and hurry and the anxiety, and this acidity, and this trembling, internal trembling because of that. So finally, I'm done with all the 3 cases. I'm sorry for taking up much more of your time than I was supposed to. And if you have any more questions, later on also, you can anytime write to me on Afreen, AFREEN 1912@gmail.com. I'll be very happy to answer you. And if you have any queries or anything, also I do online consultations. So if you feel you want to, consult me or ask me about your other cases, difficult cases, not getting better cases, I'm always there for you to answer. Please feel free to approach me.